Hello, and welcome back to Crowswood Model Railway. And I've got some minor updates for the layout and for the videos going forward. One update you probably won't see in this video, but you can definitely experience is I've got myself a new spandangly tripod thing. It's a National Geographic one. It's got height adjustable legs. I can spin it, raise the elevation and depression, and it allows me to get a higher up view on the layout without shaky hand cam. And at the same time, if I adjust the legs correctly, I can get a similar sort of height as I was getting out of my cheapy short B&M bargains tripod. So hopefully this is an improvement, although you can see the stack of boxes. That's just full of road vehicle boxes, coach boxes, wagon boxes, and sort of packing paper that I can then use if I want to make a hill out of packing paper again, because it does work somewhat well. But you can actually see up the length of the layout bit, and down there, National Geographic, that's a carry bag for this tripod, and it does have a little phone holder thing, which wasn't advertised on the Argos catalogue that it had this, but it does. My phone fits. Hopefully when I upgrade in October, that phone will also fit. And I can actually pan across the layout. There's a new acquisition I'll get onto in a second. Ooh, I can apparently knock the tripod a little bit. And we can keep going. It has my option for coasters. Actually, the controller being visible on a steady, so I can actually turn that up. And then you can see this is where I control the whole thing from. Various coaches, etc., stored of clutter about. There are 3 of these 3-tier drawers which I use just to store wagons and things that aren't on the layout. And then there's the village, which I might have a play around with and tweak at some point. The village and the goods yard. Some of the lovely Daypole 6-wheel milk tankers. They are lovely things, those. They don't derail, which is a surprise. So honestly, I was expecting them to be absolute nightmares, but even when you couple 3 of them together and you're going through the difficult S curve from the outer loop into the goods yard, they are very compliant, and they're fairly easy to shunt around. I do have a locomotive which does derail on this, which is currently on the outer loop with a Pullman train, but we'll get into her in a minute because she is a new one. I can then I can pan. I do apologise about the sun coming in through there. Not much I can do about that. The engine is over there behind the trees in the distance. The other new loco, and I can just spin around. And there's extra loco storage in addition to what's on the layout and my great grandfather's cabinet. And in that blue unit down there, the kitchen roll, that's currently where the Japanese vehicles, so my coaches, my multiple units, my 2 engines in Japanese 1 to 80 HO, because it's different to 1 to 87. It's a different thing again, like 00's 1 to 76. Also, loads of books. I've got some tanks, and I've got 2 tank engines which died, the 0401s that I have made look like they might be going to scrap, or they might be languishing in a siding at a heritage railway, but I will show a bit later on. It's just a very simple sort of job. Hopefully it looks convincing enough. But without further ado, I'll stop spinning this all the time. Hopefully I'm moving it slow enough that there's no real motion blur or travel sickness or anything. But I will pull this engine, which is new to me but second hand, 44044, which is a Midland 4F, which is one I've been looking for a little while, because there are quite a few on shed to where I live now. So this is another local engine, and the goal is to collect a small fleet of local engines. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to move the tripod to the where we'll be pulling in at the bottom of platform 2, and then we'll basically have a little show of this engine. Let's have a little zoom in on her a little bit. I don't do this fairly smoothly. I am trying to film in 1080p, but it does use a lot of storage on the phone. So she's coupled up to a general utility van, which is a Bachmann general utility van, and then 2 Hornby XLMS suburban coaches. There is one of these ones left in the Hatton's sale for £25. If you would want a cheap high detail, if you want a cheap high detail coach, there are some of the Great Western ones in this sort of colour left, and there's one of the LMS ones. I think they've got more than 10 in stock of what they've got in stock, but the number of options is sort of starting to thin out a bit. And they are very good coaches, not very intricate detail, but if you want to do a heritage railway, you want to do a BR sort of railway, or do what I do and put an LMS engine in front of them and say, yeah, close enough, then that's an option. But I've already shown these on camera. What we're going to be looking at is this Bachmann 4F. I don't remember the product number, and the box is currently under the layout and a bit of a faff to get to, but I will in a minute. So that's squeaking. I am getting on my knees so I can look better. Still getting used to this new tripod. I will get better at it as time goes on. But it is a lovely locomotive. This it is really smooth, forwards and backwards. It's factory weathered. Slight squeak from the tender pickups, but I'm used to that. Other engines of mine also squeak, but it is an absolutely lovely engine, and it looks good with the sun coming on it. Hopefully you sort of can see the axle boxes are a bit weathered. Zoom back out a bit. So it's got sort of dirty looks. 4Fs were not often pristine, but I would have preferred a pristine engine, I think. But this weathering is it's done right in my opinion. It's not too heavy. I can still see what the engine is. I can still read the numbers, read the plates, and it does complement it quite nicely. Sometimes the weathering jobs I feel are a bit too heavy. I think that goes back to me as a kid. Most of the steam engines I would have seen in steam, and this would have influenced me, were on heritage railways. Heritage railways typically have a nice, shiny, clean engine. And so that's probably why I prefer the pristine stuff. It's just what I remember the most growing up. And even today, typically speaking, unless it's in a siding, heritage railway engines are clean and shiny. Not all of them. I've seen footage of one which was a little bit dusty and dirty, but it was a goods engine, so like this is. And all of my weathered engines I think are for goods. So I only have 3. But there we go, waffling on a random tangent again. Yeah, but these were, so I'm now in LMS territory instead of Southern where I grew up. These were shedded nearby, stabled nearby in the local shed, and well, they would have done heavy coal traffic, they would have done the passenger trains like this, or probably with coming on with a few more Mark 1s eventually, once these type of coaches were getting phased out. A general utility van, just so I've got maybe some parcels, some luggage, or some mail which is being taken somewhere. But it is an absolutely lovely locomotive. As I pull it out of the station, slowly bring up the power. Second-hand engine. It runs really nicely forwards and reverse. It is a little bit less squeaky in reverse, but again, that's just the tender pickups, which I am quite used to. And of course, the signal would change as the engine's gone off scene and past it. But what I will do is I will use this as an excuse to, as I get this engine out of the way, completely out of the way. She's now stopped at the yellow signal, which is opposite this red one. So diagonally across, I will bring in what is the most expensive 00 locomotive I have ever brought. And I don't think I'll be doing a repeat. And she's now slowly coming into shot. And it's slightly obscured by a tree, so let's bring her past that little tree a bit. Oop, there we go. And so, did I need a 9F? Yes. Pretty much. I was looking, seeing if Hornby were ever going to bring out the railroad ones again, but with this being out fairly recently, I don't think they are. To be completely honest, I don't think they're in a rush to bring them back out. I don't like the Bachmann ones because they're a 210 and they've got mechanism which is high drag. Just not going to be kind on that motor, and bearings and everything will wear out and it'll die quicker. This is, as a result, then the Hornby high detail 9F. The RRP is insane, it's like £253. I obviously did not pay that, I got it from my local shop. £220 I paid for this. And for my layout, probably a little bit overkill in terms of engine size, but she's not dreadfully low on torque. There is obviously small droppage of torque. There's a curve which she doesn't like, but no locomotive likes. On my layout, it's a little bit harsh because it's a curve. I want to change the gradient, so it's understandable. But she's quite content putting 4 coaches, in this case 4 railroad Pullmans. follow her up a bit. Okay, she's up there now. But she pulls them all right. This is slightly uphill, this station. And then in the background you can see the coach. That's also uphill. Because this is an old house built on a hill. And I think they overcompensated for the hill service side, which is downhill. Part of the house which is downhill is higher than the bit of the house which is uphill. So they overcompensated a little bit. There's not much in it, but it is still a thing. But this is absolutely wonderful locomotive, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come at it from the controller side so we can have a slightly better look while it's in the station. So what I've done is I've taken the tripod down at a setting to try and get line side look at the 9F. Being 92167, this is one of the examples that was fitted with a BR1K tender, which also has the mechanical stoker in it, which the stoker worked, but it wasn't really very useful or good on the British network, and so eventually they were fitted with standard BR tenders with the whole stoker system taken out, because a good fireman could do just as good a job when it was time for heavy coaling, and then when it was time for not so heavy coaling, a fireman could generally do a better job. What it did do, however, is it did free up the fireman a little bit, I would assume. I don't know a lot about this system, but they would have had a little bit less work to do because it's automatically stoking it for him. He doesn't have to shovel the coal, but he's got to make sure the coal's in the right place, and he can keep an eye out just in case there is something which has gone wrong somewhere. But yeah, this engine is not super duper high on torque. It starts slowly and smoothly with a rake of 4 Pullmans. If I tried 5 Pullmans, it would never fit in the station. That's why the signal is there, because overhang when I have a longer train, particularly 4 Mark 1s, cause a lot of overhang. There's my hand on the controller. I'm not touching the dial until now. I am bringing it down. Slow back down to a nice gradual stop. That's on a curve now, so she's not going to be too happy with me. I think there is a flywheel in there, but I think it's absolutely puny flywheel. But the shine on top of the boiler is lovely. The smooth running is really nice, despite being a 210.0, and again, yeah, it's a little bit lower on the torque end, but for my layout, 4 coaches or equivalent in freight, it's not like I'm asking it to put a 1,000-ton scale train. So it works. It pulls alright. I won't be weathering it because I do like it in the pristine, shiny, plain black. What I'll do is in a minute, as I will elevate the tripod again, because I think the sun is now starting to come in a little bit too intense. Right, and just as I'm about to do a little bit showing what more is happening on the layout, someone outside has decided to play what barely counts as music. That is absolutely infuriating. So I apologise for the wonderful music going on in the background. There's not too much I can do about that without using the flash on the phone in the evening. But the people in the street who are probably playing out of the car stereo have absolutely sublime taste. Right. But now what I'm going to try and do, as well as showing the higher angle on the 9F, so that hopefully as she comes past you can see, it's barely visible. I probably have to switch all the lights off and go totally dark, but there is a firebox flicker in there. It is wonderful. It works really nicely. The engine looks really smart pulling a... Did I just go louder? Hey, it's off. Oh dear God. Well, that's better. The engine does have... It doesn't look really smart, but train of thought. Back on rails, it does look really good pulling, in this case, the four Pullmans. So, and they did work Pullman services occasionally. So I bring the 4F into the station, so she's a little bit more out of the way now. And so I know where she is. The 9F. So the mighty Pullman train comes rattling into town. Absolutely wonderful locomotive, this. But there's been a few changes on the layout which I want to get into. But of course, it'll be a little bit easier now that the poor excuses for music is now finished. Let me get the full back end of that Pullman in. There we go. So the Pullman is now fully in, while the oak tree is blocking it. So, slowly pan over. It's a lot more stable than shaky hand cam, this, but it's still a lot of panning. So this tree is a great big bright green tree, which is on the line side. That was the signal before. It was a probably very wrong signal. And what I want to do is I want to get ground signals in, which will be a little bit more realistic for the goods yard. I have not yet started work. I should say work. It'll be very simple, converting this to this goods yard to an isolated section. I haven't started that yet. There's the wonderful depot before. I have had a look for a Model T controller, because I do remember they used to do them. All I can find is something called a TS. A TS has 4 knobs and is incredibly wide, whereas a Model D, if I go down and over, you see it's got the 2 knobs. It's not particularly wide. Adding another one on the side, it would fit alright. I believe that Swanage Railway one was on my great granddad's. Don't know where he got it, how he got it. I don't know if he nicked it off the pub or if he brought it in the shop. I was surprised if it was nicked out the pub. They used to do that back in the day. But so Model T idea is probably put to one side, get back on track again. So I do like to get off track quite a bit. Fortunately, my train's engines very rarely do that unless I've not put them on properly. But a Gauge Master Combi would be, obviously it would work, but the problem is it would then, as it rejoins the main line, at that point on the outer loop goes into that second radius curve, there would be 2 controllers. That's what I want to try and avoid. Should I turn this area into a rarely used, at the moment, the milk train being, which is posed as if it's being buffered up onto where that oaken beer is, which will then be pulled out, and then probably the the black motor or the C, then picking it out and taking it off, because there is a passenger brake van barely visible. There's this roof in there, which I've done as if it's a post sacks being removed and put somewhere else, i.e. a little trailer at the moment, the RAF trailer. The scammel, which would be put in that, is there by that Royal Navy bloke. Again, because I have had a few more people a while ago. I don't think I've shown it, and so it's a bit more in actual use. There's actually a bit more going on. Turn. Oh, you can't quite see me. Let me take this off. But there is a little bloke, little naval bloke, a rating. He is operating that point, because the idea is this is a Royal Navy taking over, because this will be, the idea is it's near the coast, so it's a Royal Navy taking over. Stay very, very freewheeling. It's a Royal Navy taking over goods yard. The Army and RAF is about, but it's mainly Navy. But so I'll get some ground signals. I've got to figure out if I can get a Model T, because CWmR doesn't seem to make them anymore. I really want one, because I really want to be able to put an engine, sort of build up a freight train here while taking an engine out of another side, out of one of the engine sheds. So in theory I could bring, because she's visible with the 2 root discs, sort of by the coaling stage, and the signal box is 473 tank engine. 2 white discs. I could have her come out after having coal and water as she is now. She can come down along here, be parked, sort of ready to come out, as I then build up this train down here, take 87 out of the way, and park her in what is the pilot siding here, where I usually put the goods pilot, and then when it's not posed as if working here, 473 and come down, pick up the goods train, and then head off. That's the idea behind that. And, someone's just pulled up again, blaring out music. So I have to have the windows slightly open upstairs, because otherwise we're going to be it will push 28 degrees up here. It's already 25 degrees in the tarantula room, so yeah, I just wish I didn't blare it so loudly, especially when they have such poor taste. But otherwise, this is... Oh, it just stopped and started again. How wonderful. Pretty much where I'm at now with this, except for one more area I have done a little bit of work on. I'd say a little bit of work. It's literally just stick trees. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a tripod, put it in the center of the layout, while I run the 9F and the 4F, so that you can see sort of what it is I've done on the inside loop. But at the moment, the goods yard, not as much has been done as I want to, but hopefully, fingers crossed, I can figure out a solution, and that if I use 2 gauge master controllers, hopefully they're not going to interfere with each other and accidentally cause a very nice explosion. And so this is just the last little area. I've added a lot more trees, a few more bushes, all in an attempt to conceal the engines a little bit more as they sort of go off scene. Because the scene ends, in my mind, where the bridge starts there and it begins where they exit the bridge there. That in my mind is sort of the scene, as it were. So this is the break in the scene. So I did just pick up the tripod. Why did I do that? I'm still getting used to it. But she's really quite concealed, and it looks, I feel, quite effective. I added a few more trees around there, just so it's a bit more forested. So it looks like it was more forested until the trees had to be cut back to allow for the anti-aircraft gun position at the top of this hill. I'll try and zoom in a little bit on it. So you can see the Bofors Guard and the RAF personnel. There's not very clear. There's also an army officer up there, and then there's the two crash tenders, one bomber, one sort of general. The bomber one is the one with the yellow on top. Right, I'll come and move the tripod down, and it does obscure them. I don't know if I'm going to extend the trees out to along there yet, but hey, it looks alright. At least in my mind, when I'm running the trains, it looks alright to me. As the trains are coming by, and just generally it looks enjoyable. And that's the point, is to get the enjoyment and the relaxation of running. Whoops-a-daisy, running the train. I do apologise, I just hit the tripod. Again, this is the first video I've done with this thing, and I am not fully aware of where it is and where I am. So I'll move it up. So that was the stone shed. That was formerly called the King Arthur sheds. This is where I stored both King Arthurs, but now there's a King Arthur, a 700, and obviously you can see there's the Q1 and the C8 stored outside. Allows me to have a shed on the inner loop and a shed on the outer loop, and I keep very careful. I follow the 4F round. There's the bigger main shed. That's a much bigger shed. So much bigger. This is twice the size. It's 6 roads, whereas that one is 3 roads. So yeah, and it does what I want it to. It provides a bit more of a break. You can see I need to touch up a bit of the green paint along the sides of the boards. But I haven't tried anything massive behind the 9F, but it's fine with 4 coaches. 5 coaches I think is fine as well, but obviously that's not real 9F power, but for my layout it's more than enough. Really, because I can't fit much more in the station than 5 coaches with an engine very much overhanging, is why my signals are so far from the end of the station and the way they are. Otherwise I would have them nearer to the ends of the platforms. It's absolutely wonderful. It's absolutely stunning. I don't think my camera or my current camera skills can really show off just how stunning these engines are. Hopefully you can get an idea, especially of the sun, natural light coming in, that it looks quite nice. And the 4F's in the station, so I'll be around in a bit. So I'm going to park the camera there, and then the 4F's on scene. It's on sort of, so it goes off the scene onto scene, and then the 9F is now coming off the scene. Okay, so they're both coming down, and now on this side, the 4F is going off scene, the 9F is going on scene. That's how sort of my idea of how crows works, of on scene off scene works. And those two little white specks, probably quite hard to see. Those are sort of cranes or herons or something. Just a bit of more wildlife. There is a martin ferret thing in that tree, as if it's a pine martin. Keep coming round. In the middle of the frame now, that little lump in that tree, that is an owl. It's a bit hard to make it out, even if I were to zoom. But this is a little bit wilderness. It's a little bit sort of wild around here. My phone is starting to tell me that I'm running out of storage, so I am going to have to stop recording, upload this, and I will make a separate video about the N-scale stuff as there's delivery the day after I'm filming this video of the foam, which means I can start actually making a progress on the N-scale layout. But until then, what I'm going to do is I'm going to point the camera at Tower Park, and until the camera says, no, maximum file size reached again, and I'll just let these engines run. And so thank you for watching the video, despite all the wonderful, wonderful external sounds and my talent for rambling on. And I will see you in the next video, which will probably be for CWmR for the N-scale Japanese layout. So thank you, and stay safe and stay cool in this weather.